Hello, this is the 5 minute video response on math journaling. I want to start talking about math journaling. I didn't know math journaling was a thing when I did the previous assignment and looked at a few things. I kind of thought, um, well, wouldn't you just keep your math workbook as like a guide or something you can look back on and see, refer to since they have, worksheets and like the intros. But my eyes are wide open now to a math journal. Um, I really like the idea of one article mentioned open-ended questions, and I'll tell you, I read the article called "Math Journaling and Experts," Math Journal Examples and Ideas, and I read the article from Scholastic called um, Math Journals Boost Real Learning. And then I did watch the video on the guided math, getting started to guided math concepts. So I'll go back and talk a little bit about those. Um, the open-ended question ideas I thought were great. What a great thing to see students not just find the answer, but do they know, in different cases, different answers that it could be. Different vocabulary it opens up to. I liked that it touched on how often should a student write in a math journal. I'm still kind of getting used to the idea of, do I do the math unit lesson on Monday as a whole group, and then we break up into groups a couple times in the week? But this math journal kind of is the same thing, like how often, and maybe it switches every year, but how often do we do that? um, I really liked the do I review them. In one of the articles, it talked about reading to the class some of the students' entries and not naming names, but it might help other students feel comfortable with things they don't know or things they might be frustrated about. Um, One of the other articles talked about that the groups are changing constantly, which I didn't know that would be an option, but makes total sense. Maybe some student is terrible or needs improvement on multiplication, and maybe some students thrive in it. And then in 2 weeks later, we have some students that were thriving and some students that need improvement are kind of interchangeable and swapping. So, what a great way to keep changing it and having students be challenged when needed to be challenged and get help when they need to get help. I also enjoyed on the Scholastic article ending journal entries or having it even be the focal point. What I know about blank so far is blank. What I'm still not sure about is blank. And what I'd like to know more about is blank. So, a great way to get students thinking about things that they need to learn and need to go over or need more help with. Because I know sometimes I have a son who's like, well, I don't know what to write or I don't know what to do. So I think having prompting questions will be handy with a math journal. I'm really liking learning more about math journals because I just never even knew it was kind of a thing. Um, Responding to what children write, I think I would take the approach as it doesn't need to be graded, but I would like to write it and it almost becomes like a back and forth. Whether I read it and then we have a conversation about it, or I read it and then I write something about it in the journal, kind of like a, a diary or a back and forth, dialogue. I know my kids really like seeing their teachers' responses to things. I like the video using manipulatives when it comes to um, working on groups with the teachers. Manipulatives, whiteboards. I really like the whiteboards when I subbed. It was a whole group math lesson, but they would all write their answer and they'd cover it and then they'd show me. And granted, I was there for one day, but I could tell which students were struggling or needed more time and which students just got it off the bat. So I bet for teachers that's a good indicator if you're doing a big group lesson on what students could maybe be chunked off into sections. But I really like the concept of this math journal, um, keeping the whole year, maybe putting worksheets or putting your progress, you can staple it to the unit. Or maybe it is the binder looking journal that I read about as well, sectioned off into units or time frames. So maybe you have a multiplication, a subtraction, a fractions, a word problem unit, and then students have something to go back and reference. I thought that was a very good indicator and a very good way of going about a math journal. So many options, but I will for sure be incorporating a math journal of some type into the book or into my classroom.